Hello, hello, hello there. I'm Shrikant Acharya and welcome to Employee Engagement Live. It's Friday evening, and every Friday I try to bring to you experienced professionals in the space of HR, corporate communication, leadership, and so on, and we speak about employee engagement. Once again, I'm Shrikant Acharya, CEO at OffiNeeds.com, a leading corporate gifting company based in Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Chennai. So today is going to be my seventh episode where I have a very, very, very interesting speaker. And I'm going to talk about him in just a bit. But I want to first tell you why Employee Engagement Live, why we really do this show. So employee engagement has been a very, very important topic. It's been something that's been fine-tuned, that's been obsessed over. New strategies and new ideas have always been implemented in the space of employee engagement. But because of COVID-19, with all the employees working from home, nobody coming to office, things have changed significantly. Employee engagement has become even more challenging than it always was because employees are no more coming to offices. You're meeting and speaking to people over Microsoft Teams or Google Meet or any of those kind of communication software. And most of the times, you probably don't even have your cameras on. So we understand your pain point, and that's why I created the Employee Engagement Live. Today is the seventh episode of Employee Engagement Live, and I hope you will find value in the conversations that I have with the great speakers. So my effort is to try to bring professionals, authors, and people with a sizable amount of experience in the space of building teams, in the space of recruitment, in the space of corporate communication, and in the space of leadership across different industries. And then I pick their brains on different questions, challenges, opportunities, and philosophies and ideas around employee engagement. About a couple of months back, I came across this book. It's called Power to People. I found this on Amazon, and I was intrigued by the intro of the book and everything. I ordered this book, and I fell in love with it instantly. This book is written by Ghansham Pant, and Ghansham Pant is a very, very interesting person. Yes, no points for guessing. He's our speaker today, and he's got amazing amount of experience in the manufacturing and production and that kind of space. And this book is his story about setting up a brand new plant from scratch for Marico Industries in Kerala. So it's like a story. It really keeps you gripped, and he narrates about the challenges and the opportunities and how we address those challenges and so on. So if you are if you're into people leadership, if you are into enabling workplace culture and so on, this is a book you must have. So right now, go to Amazon, find Power to People by Ghansham Pant, order it. If you have a Kindle, probably by evening you'll be able to finish the book. Or if you like to get a hard copy of the book, next week you'll probably have finished the book. Or if you're lucky, be participative in this particular session, and at the end of it, 3 of the best, most engaging questions will get a book autographed by the author himself. Okay, so let me take a minute to introduce you to Ghansham Pantji. There's a new word I learned today. It's called a septuagenarian. A septuagenarian is a person who's little over 70 years old, and Ghansham Pantji is 70 years old, and he's energetic and as super cool as somebody much younger. And that's why I'm wearing a green t-shirt, to show you how evergreen he really is. Ghansham Pantji graduated as a mechanical engineer from BHU, and then he worked for 25 years in companies like National Fertilizers, in Toyo Engineering, in Castrol India, in Marico Industries, and at Agrotech, at different levels in the manufacturing, quality management, and that kind of in that area. In 2000, he quit and he became a management consultant, and he worked with several companies, including Tata Chemicals, Tata Power, Rallis, L&T, ITC, Grasim Industries, and so on. So when I tell you he is really competent to be speaking about building workplace culture and employee engagement, you got to really believe me. So without any further ado, let me welcome Mr. Ghansham Pantji. Sir, very good evening. Thank you so much for agreeing to join us on the Employee Engagement Live. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Srikanth. You have said so many good words about me. I don't know how many I really deserve. But anyway, thank you so much. It was nice to hear. And this is the first time that somebody is calling me septuagenarian. Wow. All right.
If somebody
Good to
looked at
be-
you, they wouldn't believe that.
Yeah.
So
Just got into my 70s.
yeah, let's get straight off the bat. I really love this book. So I want to ask you, I know you've taken 19 long years to write this book. So tell us a little bit about this book. Why did you write this book, and what should somebody expect from this book?
Okay, that's a interesting part you're asking. I was in Kerala from 1992 to 1996. 4 years I was involved in setting up that plant and then creating a workplace culture. That's what the whole book is about. Then I came back to the corporate office in Mumbai, and one day, I was invited um, by the company called Blue Star, and they wanted to hear about our experience in Kerala. So we had both the Advanis over there, and their entire top management was there. And I had just 7 slides. Those were the days of those transparencies. So I had 7 transparencies only. So I said, look, I'm going to speak about those. And those 7 transparencies took me 3.5 hours to complete in the morning. And at the end of that, everybody was so glued to that. In fact, the managing director said that he actually had some plan to go somewhere, and he just wanted to be there for about 30 minutes. But then he was glued to the whole story, and he loved it. And then he requested whether we can have more engagement. Okay, point beside that. That actually made me think that, look, if people are so moved by this story, maybe this is something I should write. But then, you get involved in your day-to-day work and you don't really get time to do that. But what I used to do was I used to scribble down in terms of, what are the things that I must share with people. And then when I got into consulting, I started sharing those kind of experiences in bits and pieces. And every time they used to say that, look, why don't you put it into a book? So, there have been demands like that. So I said, okay, one day I'm going to write it. So in the year, say, 2000, when I started my consulting, I said, okay, seriously started thinking about this. And I created a structure. What are the things that I want to write in the book? Right. And over the period of time, I just went on writing a few more bullet points in that story. And then finally, in the year 2018, I became serious. There were some people, who were just after me, said, why are you not completing that book? Including one of my colleagues, Vijayan, who is now a dean in Wellinkar Institute of Management in Bombay. He said, Ghanshyam, you must complete that. I said, okay. So they put pressure. I said, okay, I made a commitment. Okay, by next year when we meet, this book will be ready. And awesome. We were to meet in July 2019, and my book came in on 23rd of May 2019. That was the birthday of my wife. So I said, okay, let me publish the book on that day, important day, so that she can also feel happy about it.
Right.
So that's the story about that book. It took time, awesome. And a lot of things where fill in the blanks were done while I was in airports, moving from one place to other place, meeting the clients. So that's the story behind this book.
Perfect. Awesome. Really inspiring. I love this. I loved it. So once again, for the benefit of the audience, I want to tell you, this is going to be a really interesting conversation, and we're going to be speaking a lot about building culture, about leadership, and about employee engagement. So if you have any questions, please write them down. In a few more minutes, in about 10-15 minutes, I will request you to start asking your questions. And the best 3 questions are going to get those 3 books. Ghanshyamji is showing that book. You're going to get 3 of those books autographed by the author himself. So if you want to say hi to the author, I see Dinesh and Charles saying hi to Ghanshyamji. Thank you guys for being active.
Hi,
so
Dinesh.
All right,
hi, Charles.
let's start. And Ghanshyamji, I want to ask you the first question. What does employee engagement really mean to you?
Well, actually, this employee engagement has become a very common word nowadays, and not only now, for quite some time. Uh, there are organizations who are actually conducting these surveys to find out how engaged are their employees, and then they develop some kind of action plans to build it. So if you look at as per my own experience, when I start looking at employee engagement, I would say that if you say that you are an engaged employee, what you are saying is that you are fully aligned with the overall vision of your company, of your organization, and your goals are aligned to that. That's one. The second thing you are saying is that, look, I can be engaged in my work only if the role that I have is fits my capability. That's when I get engaged with my work. I'm not good in something and you put me in that job, there's no way at all that I'll be engaged well. I can be engaged well only if I am fully conversant in that. The third would be that, when you say that when you are doing the work, there are people around you who are supportive. There are people who can give you feedback. There are people who can appreciate if you've done a good job, but also give you corrective feedback so that you can make improvements in that. You need to have an environment where if there are any deficiencies in what you are doing, there is a support system, which is actually making you capable. So whether it is by coaching, whether it is by training or whatever, if you have that kind of a system available, then you are saying that, okay, I'm going to be doing well. So that's what the engagement would mean. And one very important part is that, engagement actually starts from the beginning. If you ask me, when is a person willing to put everything in what he or she does? It is at the beginning of a job at a particular place, because it's at that time everything is at stake. You have to prove yourself. At that point in time, if you are not getting engaged fully, if you don't know what you have to do and what are the processes that you have in place, and you are not able to manage those processes well, then you become demotivated very fast. And there is no chance of you getting back engaged into the system. So I would say that, right in the beginning, it becomes most important. And as you go along, it becomes a continual process.
Awesome. That's a great point. I loved it. And it suddenly makes so much sense, right? Because when you have a new job, it's exciting to start. It's a change in your career. You have to prove your worth to the organization. And it's a great opportunity to make an impression. That's a great point.
Not only that you have to prove your worth to the organization, you have to prove the worth to yourself. Because you make the decision of making a switch. So knowing that, you'll be able to manage that. So now, how do you get more confidence? Only by doing well in what you thought that you could be able to do well.
Absolutely. That's a great point. I have a question here. Now, a lot of these things you mentioned about processes, you mentioned about strategies that you need to have in place, and you need to be able to engage them from the beginning. Like most of the people that I've interviewed so far are from the technologically enabled companies. They have a lot of access to software. Everybody is working on laptops or systems and so on, right? But you were doing this. You're talking about culture. You're talking about a lot of the language that is commonplace today. You're talking about doing that in 1992 or maybe before that, right? But I hear about this story in 1992 in Marico when this was probably unheard of, right? And there was no technology or there was nothing of those kind of things, right? And you're dealing with laborers, you're dealing with coolies, you're dealing with factory staff and all of that kind of employees, right? So how is it different? So engaging employees who are blue collared versus who are white collared, is there a difference? If there is, how is it different?
Okay, I think I'll actually answer this question in two parts. The first part is that let me just talk about what we did at that point in time.
Okay.
When our company decided to set up a plant in Kerala, we were fully aware that, we are going into a place which had a very challenging industrial environment. In fact, many of the well-wishers of the promoters, they said that why are you going to a place like that? Because if you go there, then you're only going to lose money. Because industrially it's very, very, very difficult kind of a place. So what we decided that, if we are going there, we have to do it right first time. So as we went there, while of course the book is more about the software rather than the hardware, in the sense that, okay, the hardware will be the land, the building and the design, etc., etc. There's no point talking about that because there are set processes for that. There are good suppliers, and then there are people who are well versed, and then they'll do it.
Right.
But more about the software of developing a culture which will ensure that people will remain fully engaged and they give their best. So what we did was that we did a lot of survey of the people around, companies around, and based on that, then we said, okay, we need to do it in a systematic manner. So the first thing we did was we said that, okay, we need to have everything that we do has to be, for that, the central thing has to be the vision for that place. So the first thing we did was we created a vision, and the name of that place is Kanjikot, so we called it a Kanjikot vision.
Right.
And it had certain, aspects, certain pillars. I'm not going to take time in this one about what were the pillars, but the point is, the idea was that, okay, if you have a vision, everybody is focused on that vision, then it will be easier for people to relate, because they're all talking about, it's like that story you might have heard about, whether you are, those masons or the stone chippers who are working, and a guy goes up to a hill and he asked somebody, he said that, what are you doing? He said, I am breaking the stone, chipping the stone. As you go along, if somebody say that, okay, I'm creating or making a pillar out of this stone, and you go further and you see a third person and he's also doing the same thing. He said, what are you doing? He said, I'm making a temple. Now he had a vision. All three were doing the same thing, but if you look at the engagement level, his engagement was the highest because he knew what is going to be the final product. So the same thing we did here. We said, okay, we need to have everybody talk about that, what kind of factory we want to make. Now, having done that, then the next thing was that when you are recruiting the people, and both blue collar and the officer staff, we put a lot of emphasis in how actually selecting the people, ensuring that they are positive minded people, and then after that putting them through a very vigorous induction program where they become part and parcel of the Kanjikot vision itself and the values of the company.
Right.
So we used to have a lot of sessions about that. So because of that, people became very clear that, okay, this Kanjikot vision is very important for us. Okay, so that's what they did. Now, having done that, then the next part was that how do you continuously ensure that people are able to relate their day-to-day activities with the vision. Okay, so I'll just give you a very small story here.
Okay.
So I used to have a habit of, as the head of that plant, I used to have a habit of just moving around in my plant round, and I would just pick up anybody. It could be a blue-collar worker, or it could be an officer. I'll say, okay, what have you done yesterday or today which supports the vision? A very simple question. I made sure, not only me, but even my supporting managers used to do the same kind of thing. He said, today I came in I gave my seat to a lady in a bus. So I said, what's so great about it? Everybody would do that. If you are in a bus and a lady is standing, you would give that. I said, no, sir, you see that I'm wearing a uniform. And he said, this is Marico written here. So I said, how does it matter? He said, they see that this is Marico, and they don't see that who stood up. They said, somebody from Marico stood. Somebody from Marico gave a place to that woman. So I did something about the pillar external image. So by that, I helped the external image of the company getting a positive from the people. So I was quite moved. I said, people are actually now trying to understand what this vision is all about, and they are really trying to live that. And then after that, we started, training them into those areas, the work areas itself, and a lot of other things which we did, which will make sure that people felt that this is their company. And so therefore, they used to be very, very excited about doing the work, the kind of thing which we did. We had some total quality management practices over there.
Right.
Not only that, if there are any visitors coming, we used to have these workers come and address those people and take them to the work plant round. Typically,
Right.
you would probably have some HR guy or admin guy taking them around, or maybe a
Mm.
head of the production taking them around.
Right.
But we made a policy of having these blue collar workers take the people around. First of all, explain to them what
Mm.
this plant is all about. We train them in
Okay.
that. So they used to feel very
Right.
proud of that, extremely proud. They said, okay, we are getting a chance. And then when they used to go back to their families, and their fathers and uncles, etc., used to work in other industries around, and they used to be saying, okay, your company seems to be different, because that's not what they were experiencing.
Right.
So, in that exchange of what you are doing and what we are doing in their families, they really
Right.
understood that what we were doing was different, and they become more and more, I would say, they develop more ownership for the company. Okay.
Right.
So that's what. And now let me talk about you said about the blue collar and the
Yes.
management staff. See, many of the things that we did in that place were common to both.
Mm.
We tried to remove the barriers between the management and the blue collar. Okay. Now, for example, if I give you an example that how do you actually make those people, even the the one at the bottom of the entire organization, the frontline or the unskilled worker. So we said, okay, are there any training programs where we can, instead of differentiating, we say we can all do it together. So we had one program which is what is typically, it's called 5S, a housekeeping training session. It used to be a 2-day kind of a workshop. So what we did the first time, we had 2 officers who had 2 managers who had gone and got the training, and they were the people who did the training over there. And then we said, okay, now the participants of this program will be both the managers as well as the workmen. So we had 2/3 workmen and 1/3 the supervisory staff who will be attending that.
Okay.
So now, immediately when you did that, there was something say, oh, we are learning it together. And then the next thing which we developed on that, we said, okay, somebody from this will also become a co-facilitator of the next program. So in the next program,
Nice.
there was a worker who was also a co-facilitator. Now he is training who? He is training the people, not only the worker, but some of the managers who are there.
Right.
In fact, in one of the programs, I was a participant.
Okay.
And I mean, immediately looking at me, they gave me a smile. I said, "It's all right. No, you are today. You are the trainer, and I'm the trainee. So continue doing that." You could have seen the pride in his
Right,
face, and not
yes.
only in
Yeah.
his face and everybody else. So these are the
Right.
kind of thing which we did to bring them together, to make a feeling of a sense of ownership with the organization, and therefore fully engaged with the work.
Right. Awesome. That sounds really, really good, really inspiring. Great to hear that. So I've seen that you've been working with I keep hearing a lot of people who are in the manufacturing business complaining that the IT guys and the services business have it easy, that they are dealing with educated and people with white collar staff who are more aspirational, doing a more professional kind of work, whereas we have to deal with drivers and foremen and everything, and they are more rough and not so easy to deal with, and so on. So is that a reality? Do you have any advice or anything to tell them?
When you come to keeping your employees engaged, primarily it's the same thing. So basically, if you look at making the employee engagement or increasing the level of engagement of the employees up, is entirely the role of the leadership. Now, here I don't mean the leadership means the higher level. I'm saying that everyone who's a leader. So every leader, for example, you may have somebody as an assistant manager, a leader of maybe 6 or 7 people.
Right.
Or you maybe have work floor supervisor who is a supervising a few workers, or you may be having in your vehicle section somebody who is a supervisor, and then he has got the drivers and mechanics as part of his. So all these scenarios, the issue is same. In all these areas, if you look at, forget about that. If you look at home, the lady who has got the maids coming, Now, that is also a situation where there is a, how do you ensure that your mate is fully engaged? These are the
Right.
questions everybody has to ask. So ultimately, if you look at, you have to, the question is the same thing, that are you sure that, the person understands what that person has to do? So
Right.
to bring a role clarity becomes one of the
Mm.
most important part.
Mm.
So how do you ensure
Right.
that these people are fully aware of what they have to do? How do you
Right.
ensure that you are able to pat on their back when they have done, even if they have done a small good thing? Or are you only waiting for opportunities to, basically thrash that person just because he or she made a mistake? Now, these are the
Right.
questions which one has to ask. Now,
Right.
let me give you an example from one of the clients I was working with. Um this, as I was saying in the beginning, that companies have got these employee engagement surveys, etc., happening,
Mm.
and
Mm.
then they try to develop some kind of action plans. So, in one of the companies that I was working as a consultant, so we just talked about, and they had done a survey, and then there were results which are there, and they were already sitting there for about 3 months, and nothing was happening.
Mm.
So although, except that those results had already been shared with the senior management across the locations, etc. It's a
Mm.
large
Mm.
company, so different places, the top people knew about what is happening and what's not happening.
Right.
And they were asked to come up with their action plan. I said that, look, you might want to have a slightly different approach.
Mm.
Engage the people in
Mm.
developing the action plan.
Mm.
So you have taken their views, and they have given in the questionnaire 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They put a tick
Mm.
mark, and then you
Mm.
have done your a company like Gallup, etc. They have done the entire uh, put the data together and then come up with their slides, and they are saying, look, this is what you are, and
Mm.
different, in terms of the demography wise, etc. You have got all the results.
Right.
And you may want to have action plans for each kind of a department or location, etc. But if you
Right.
involve those people and
Mm.
say that, look, what are the things that we really need to do? What you have
Mm.
got are the numbers, but how do you ensure that some kind of subjective kind of uh, data input is brought in through discussion, and therefore
Mm.
what should be the action plan? Maybe that
Mm.
will help.
Right.
And fortunately, they were listening. A good client, I would say. Sometimes they don't listen. So,
Right.
so they said, okay, can you design? So we designed something for them, and
Mm-hmm.
we had those workshops about roughly about 4 hour duration for the management staff, where they would sit together, and then they will say, okay, and they will sit in their teams. Now, when we come to now there are two parts in a survey. One is what we call an engagement part, and one other we call as a satisfaction part. So one is related to the team employee engagement. The second related to satisfaction with the company. The other
Mm.
question.
Mm.
So when it came to that engagement part, we said, okay, this part will be dealt in uh, teams. So that means
Mm.
the team leader and his reportees would sit together, and then
Mm.
they will say, okay, this is what we have got. We
Mm.
ourselves have rated ourselves on a scale of
Mm.
10, maybe 3 or 2 or 5, whatever it is, but that's what
Right.
we rated. So let us discuss among ourselves, because each one comes with a different experience. What are the factors because of which these are low? And then
Right.
they themselves came up with, okay, maybe these are the 3 things which we have to do this
Mm.
time, so that we can make improvement.
Mm.
So what happened? They did that, and then they came up with some kind of goals or action plans. And then I
Mm.
said, okay, now you need to review this, monitor this action plan on a regular basis. So every month,
Right.
you have your monthly meeting. Look at how far those action plans have been worked on.
Mm.
So that is as far as the white collar people were concerned.
Mm.
But let's give you an example of a factory where there were almost about 1,800 people or so,
Okay.
uh, workers. So you can't involve all 1,800 together. In case of white collar, we had all the people were involved in this exercise. But for
Right.
this, you can't have that. So we said, okay, let's do an exercise in which we have select some maybe about 100 people for this job. So
Right.
there was an
Okay.
exercise, and it was not randomly decided by somebody, and then you have it. We had
Uh,
certain criteria, and then we had that. And then
mm-hmm.
we had a full day long workshop for them, including the union. The union members were also invited. He said, okay, the union also will sit on one of the table, and other people will also sit, and then
Right.
a lot of discussion will happen. So we designed the whole thing in a manner that by the end of the day, there was a lot of heat generated, because at the end of the day, we had the location head also sitting over there. He said, now the time that we talk about that. So a lot of things were discussed, and some action plans were created from that.
Right.
So I tell you that, after that, what they got, at the end of that workshop, we went for about 9.5 hours at a stretch. At the end of that, the workers came and they told me, sir, we have never actually done this kind of exercise for such a long time. We are not used to with pen and paper, and then you made us write all this. But they said, we enjoyed this one. I said, it's not the question of enjoying this workshop and enjoying the food here, but it is after that, what you have to do. You have made a commitment that you are going to do it. So make sure that you do it, and make sure that, you see an end result of what you are writing here. So that kind of situation, it helped. And then they did in the future, subsequently also they did that. So if you look at, and we used to have that, how they fared in terms of the overall employee engagement score, and we could see that there was an upward increase in the employee engagement score over a period of maybe about 3-4 years time. And when you have got large companies, and you talk of companies which are coming with a lot of baggage from the past, it takes time to improve that. Nobody should expect a result which will come overnight. It doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't happen.
Right. Perfect. Thank you for that answer. I had a few more questions, and you answered all of them in one go. Thank you so much. That was insightful. So for the audience that's here, I want to remind you can start putting in your questions now. We have another 15 minutes before we can wind up. So the 3 most interesting questions will get this book, signed by the author himself. So please go ahead and start. I can see already some questions from Sandhya and from something from Charles. So we'll take that. I think both the questions are kind of related. So Sandhya is asking, what is the role of technology, organization culture, and job satisfaction in improving employee engagement in a COVID-19 pandemic? In the current kind of a situation, what can be done to improve employee engagement? Charles is asking a very similar question, but slightly different. How can the pandemic change workplace culture for the better? These are 2 slightly similar questions related around COVID-19. Would you like to take them, Mr. Kancham?
Yeah. It's actually, for the last 1 year, everybody is thinking about the same thing: pandemic, work from home, pandemic, work from home. It's a difficult situation. And, when we talk about the engagement for anybody, we are all used to physical environment. And it had its lot of pluses. In fact, that, you have a question, you need some help, you can just walk across and then do it. Now, all that is not available when you are in a situation like this. You are all alone. Now, put to that, you are working from places where there is a lot of background noise. So it's not that everybody has got a separate room in the house and where you can actually make it an office and do it.
Correct.
It's not happening. I've been talking to many people who have been in terms of, with my clients, and I hear some background noise. Somebody's talking, somebody's, a child crying over there or whatever. But there are a lot of disturbances in that.
There is construction happening right next door, right now.
Even that. And once I was having a discussion. I found there was somebody who was actually participating from a car. So now when you have that situation, then you have another situation in terms of the connectivity. So neither he can, he's not audible properly, or he can't hear you properly. These are the issues. Now, for you to be engaged, you have to focus.
Correct.
So how do you focus? I think that is the primary question. How do you focus so that you can be fully engaged with your work?
Right.
So I have some thoughts about that. One of the most important thing is that we all work in teams. Most of us have teams. There are, of course, people who are working in situation like R&D, etc., who may be thinking more about in their own ways. But most of us are working in teams. Right. Now, when we are working in teams, it becomes so much important for us to be a team, even though we are isolated in different places.
Mm.
So how do we make sure that we have got a structured mechanism in which we meet regularly, and we have a structured agenda to discuss and ensure
Right.
that everybody is heard and everybody is spoken to? That
Mm.
is very important part. And
Right.
more so for the people who are in the leadership position, who have got the team members who report to him. How do you keep that communication on with those people so that you
Right.
understand, are there any
Mm.
issues that need to be dealt with?
Right.
Because if there is any issue that is coming up, and if you don't deal with that immediately, then
Mm.
the work itself gets impacted, and the
Correct.
engagement level of the employee would go down. So
Right.
I would say that you need to be more have more communication when you are in a work from home situation, structured
Mm.
communication, structured
Mm.
meetings, and which are basically in terms of done with a schedule. It's not that somebody
Correct.
says tomorrow we are meeting at 10 o'clock, and
Mm.
then next time it is sometime in some other
Mm.
place.
Yeah.
So I would say that. And then how do you make sure that your connectivity is good?
Mm.
Because that's one of the areas we need to really look at, because some people may have great connectivity,
Mm.
some people may not have. So how to
Right.
deal with that? We have to
Mm.
become alive to that situation and make sure that something is done about it.
Right.
Of course,
Right.
there are solutions which
Yeah.
the organization know best.
Absolutely perfect. So there are a few more questions. I'll kind of group them together. Ganesh and Ruby have asked questions related to workplace culture. Ganesh says, why is workplace culture important? Does workplace culture impact employee engagement? And Ruby says, how does an organization analyze if their organizational culture is turning into a hero or a villain during this pandemic? So talk to us a little bit about what is workplace culture and the impact that it has on employee engagement and so on.
When you talk about the workplace culture, you are talking about basically the relationship that you have, the working relationship that you have in a workplace. Okay, so when you are in a physical workplace, then there are a lot of things which are happening around you. There are things which are related to the work, how you do the work, and there are also beyond the work, which like the chit chat, what we call as maybe a when you're walking along a corridor, and then you have some kind of a gossip. You can call it a coffee gossip or whatever. So you have those kind of things, and you need to make sure that people are able to relate well with each other. You need to be more communicative. I just give you one small example of this one.
Right.
I'm again taking an example from my book itself,
Right.
where we used to say that, okay, are you able to, in a workplace, you should be able to solve the problems immediately. That's very important. And let's say in that workplace, we were very clear what needs to be done. Whenever there is a issue comes up, everybody should know about it. So in that place, we had maybe different factories, units over there, a packaging plant, a place where you actually do the processing, then you pack, and then it goes off out. So and then our people used to have during the tea time would make their own tea, etc. We ensure that culture is such that people are sitting together and then doing their own work. There are no outside help on that. And so they would come to the main office area, and then from the pantry they would come and then take up some of the essentials and then go back. So one day there were two workmen who came, and I just saw them. I said hello. So we some pleasantries, and then I just said, okay, your hands are very dirty, and these walls, we had white walls, so they will all become dirty. All right. They smiled and they went back. And 5 minutes later, I get a call from from the plant. They said, sir, what have you spoken to these people? They are very upset. I said, what happened? They said, you scolded them for this. I said, never scolded. I said, don't worry, I'm going to come over there. So I went immediately. Because I said, we can't just discuss about this later. I went there. Then I said, okay, what happened? So he said, we came. So I said, okay, you translate whatever I say word by word to them. Because, I used to speak in English. They used to speak in Malayalam.
Right.
I didn't know that, and they didn't understand English. So I said, okay. So then they said, we went and you said, don't put your hand. Then I said, okay, ask them a question. What will happen if their hands, when they put it on the wall? So they say, yeah, the wall will become dirty. Said, okay, ask them that what is the external image pillar of the vision, how will it get impacted? They said, okay, because in the office, the people who come from outside, if they see this, they were saying, if they see that, this place is becoming dirty, they will go with a bad impression. I said,
Right.
is that what we want? And they said, no, we don't want that. I said, then what is the issue? Sir, no issue. The whole thing
Right.
was resolved then and there. So when we
Right.
talk about the workplace culture, it is all about ensuring that you don't allow the things to go beyond become larger in proportion. You
Right.
communicate with them, you solve the problems there itself,
Right.
and then not only that, I will give you another example where if somebody is doing a good job in the plant, how do you make sure that that plant you go and then do a pat that person in front of everybody else? So when you do that, everybody
Correct.
wants to do the same thing. Now,
Yeah.
work from home, that is not available.
That is not available.
That's not available because if you have done a good work and I said you have done a good work, there's no one else to listen. Now, if you praise me, I want other people to hear, okay, somebody is praising me.
True.
If you
Very
praise
true.
me in private, I mean, it's all right. When you want to reprimand me in private, that is fine. You can't, I would not like you reprimanding me in the public, but I would like you to praise me in public.
Yes.
Now, that is not available in the work from home situation.
Correct.
But it's all right, even if that is not there. But if you have got some kind of, meeting, structured meeting, and some of those issues can be then, discussing those. And then we say, okay, you have done a good work or he has done a good work. What are those small things, which as a leader, you are able to talk about it.
Right.
That makes, that actually replaces, let's say, the remoteness of the location itself.
Right.
You can actually, it can actually vanish.
Perfect. Perfect.
That's
Makes
why I'm
sense.
saying that, it becomes so much important for these groups to have those kind of meetings and
Right.
have those, find some time to, to gel well.
Right.
Then you can see that those things can be better.
Yeah. Yeah. Good one. Thank you. We have another very interesting question from Ravi Kumar MB. He says, during this pandemic, people are losing their jobs and finding a new one is not so easy as before. So can you please discuss a little bit about retention? What do you have to say about that?
Retention, what can I say about retention? Because, let me put it like this.
Yeah.
If suppose you are the employer, if you are the employer, who would you like to retain? And who would you like to fire?
Yeah. Most productive.
The answer lies in that. If suppose I perform, and if I'm again, I should be seen to perform. So, and then not only to myself, but to my boss and even to everybody else. And I need to communicate, to have that, that two-way communication, so that I get the right kind of feedback. And
Right.
I'm given opportunity to improve on that. And if despite that, if I'm not making any improvement, then there is something wrong with me, perhaps.
Right.
I have not done enough to be able to, be valuable to the organization. Then that situation can arise. But of course, this is not the only case, because in current situation is different, because people are losing job also because the job itself is not there. So many people have lost because the company is not there or not have any business. So it's a difficult situation. I don't know. I don't have answers for that. But
but
I can
I
only
think
say,
you partially answered that, saying, do your best, make sure you're among the best, and the chances of you retaining the job or finding newer jobs are quite high. Yeah. Okay, I have a gentleman here by name Dinesh Kakad who's asking, what's the most important personal attitude, motivation, or top management involvement to be able to achieve maximum and effective employee engagement?
he knows the answer, Dinesh. Okay,
But I think
let
he
me
wants
put, because
everybody else to know the answer.
Mr. Dinesh Kakkar is a very respected consultant himself,
Okay.
and he knows and we are all talking about the same thing. I mean, you see, uh, the most important thing, of course, is the leadership. Now, leadership has to create the right kind of environment so that the person can do the best to remain motivated.
Right.
Now, motivation, see, there are, again, when you talk about motivation, there are self-motivated people who don't require any kind of motivation. Whatever happens, they will find something to do. But
Right.
that's a very small percentage.
Right.
Majority of people need some external stimulus to remain motivated. And that stimulus primarily comes from what the top management does. How they organize and how do they communicate with the people, what kind of various things which they have in the organization, which will make people think that, okay, I mean, for example, the smallest thing is that if I am praising somebody, the person becomes more motivated.
Right.
If my wife is not appreciative of the work that the maid does, then the maid is not going to be happy. She's not going motivated. But if she says, "Oh, you've done a good job," then next time she will show that, okay, look, I have done something good here.
Something.
That kind of thing. Same thing goes in the organization.
Right. Perfect. I think that's very well said. Thank you so much. We have very little time, and I cannot resist taking this last question. Praveen has an amazing question for you here. He says, "What is the challenge you faced in the 90s, and how you used to solve at that point of time?" And back then the communication and the technology and the culture and everything was very, very different, right? So how are things different? How are things different back then, and how are things different now? You can answer that from any point of view, from employee experience or from the management point of view, technology point of view, or from any point of view that you like.
If you ask me, I think very little has changed. Not much has changed, except for the technology. Okay.
Okay.
There are a lot of things technology has done. See, for example, let's say in those days we were not 24/7 connected with our organization. Today we are. Now, in those days we used to think that, okay, if I knew this thing, then I could do this. Okay. We used to think only about that. We used to dream about that. We didn't have that. And when the technology started coming in, like, for example, the mobile phones and then the internet, etc., then these things started happening. Now, so much so that today, 24/7, you are connected. In the right middle of the night, you want to have a bathroom break, you will check up what was the last message from somewhere, because today you are connected worldwide. So there may be some question happening in some part of the globe, and you may be part of that. So today you are connected more. So what happens that it actually helps you in your to have an improved response time. Right. So in terms of your ability to respond better because of the technology which is available today, it was not available that time.
Right.
Those were the days you had no other go but to have those discussions and look at the files and the other kind of data, and then come up with whatever decisions you have to make. Today, it's not that you don't have to discuss, but then you have got the data first thing with you, and then you can pick up a phone and then you can discuss, or you can write an email or whatever. But there are a lot of changes that have happened as far as that your connectivity to your work is concerned. But if you talk about let's say creating a team which is fully engaged, nothing has changed. Then also you needed to communicate with the people, give them, motivate them. Now also you have to do the same kind of thing. Maybe slight differences, but you have to do it. And if you have a great team is only that where everybody understands each other and able to support, and therefore able to see that what is the common good and achieve that common good, so that we can all benefit from that. So those are the things.
Very well said. I love that answer. I loved it. Thank you so much, Ghanshyamji. We've reached the absolute end of our session. I want to really thank you and thank everybody from the audience. We had some more questions which we were not able to take on due to lack of time, but I think we were kind of directly or indirectly answered some of those questions. I want to thank everybody who asked those questions and participated. Ghanshyamji, would you like me to pick the 3 winners, or would you like to do that?
I would like you to do it, because you are there and you have a better understanding of who you should think should get it. My
Right.
job would be to sign it and then
Yes,
and then send it across to
absolutely.
you.
So I picked three questions that were really interesting. The first one is from Prabin Lal. That was the last question that we took, which was about the difference between, how things were different in the 1990s and how the things are now. The second question I would pick from Mr. Ravi Kumar, who asked about the retention related question. I think it was very, very important that we speak about it. And the third person I would pick, Dinesh Kakad, I think, who's your colleague or your friend or something, who asked a very important question that you were able to speak about the importance of a top-down kind of an approach, and saying how important it is for the leadership to take initiatives to make employee engagement more effective, and and make it more possible, so to say. So congratulations, Prabin, Ravi, and Dinesh. Congratulations. Somebody from my team will get in touch with you and ask you for your address, and we'll ship over an autographed copy of the book over to your residence. Thank you, Ghanshyamji. It was great fun. It was really, really good speaking to you. And I'm super excited. I feel much more energized after speaking to you. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you had a good time.
My pleasure, Shrikant. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day. Bye-bye.